Today I've got a great whole class reading strategy that you can implement with your next class novel. It allows you to scaffold independent reading through 3 stages. So if you're tired of always doing the heavy lifting when reading novels as a class, this video is for you. Stick around until the end and I'll share with you how you can get my 3-2-1 reading guide for free. My name is Scott, and you're watching Immediate Immersion, where we're all about comprehension-based instruction in the modern language classroom. We'll be right back. I love to read whole class novels with my students. I love the discussions they provide and the aha moments my students have when they understand what's going on. The problem with whole class novels, though, is that the teacher is always doing the heavy lifting, guiding the students through the chapters and making the text comprehensible. Because of this, many students rely upon me to understand the novel and aren't becoming strong, independent readers. So I came up with the idea of 3-2-1 reading to help alleviate that and produce independent readers who are less reliant upon the teacher. So what is 3-2-1 reading? 3-2-1 reading is a whole class reading strategy that scaffolds reading as students go from whole group reading to paired reading and to independent reading. Each stage of 3-2-1 reading is important on its own, allowing for students to progressively move towards independent reading. But the key to success of 3-2-1 reading is the discussions that occur between each stage. The discussion not only assures that all students understand what is read, regardless of if it was read as a whole group, in pairs, or individually, but also deepens the understanding of the content, themes, and issues that occur in the book. So how does 3-2-1 reading work? There are 3 stages of 3-2-1 reading, with each stage followed by whole class discussions in the target language about what happened in the novel and any themes or issues that were introduced. The first stage is the whole class reading stage. I'll read with my students the first 2 or 3 chapters to explain the background of the novel and to get them invested in the characters and story before the next stage. During this stage, I read the chapter in the target language, and I either have the class orally translate into the home language, or for upper levels, I'll translate any words I know they don't know or words that they ask about. Once everyone understands what happened in the chapter, I initiate a class discussion in the target language. I start with concrete facts of the chapter, the who, what, when, and where. Afterward, we'll explore any themes, characterization, or issues that arose within that chapter. Also, if there's any relevant culture to the chapter, we will also discuss that, usually along with Google Images and Google Maps to further explore the land and the people. I'll do this for each of the first 2 or 3 chapters, depending on the novel. Now that my students have gotten into the novel, I will have them pair off to read the next chapter with one other person. I want them to read to each other in their home language, and their partner can help them if they struggle with a word or a sentence. They can either alternate paragraphs or pages. Whichever they decide is okay by me. While they are reading in pairs, I'll circulate around the room and answer any questions they may have. Once each pair has had an opportunity to read the chapter, we come back together as a whole class and we have our discussion in the target language. I'll start by asking if there are any questions. I do this to make sure there is no confusion about what they understood about the chapter. I then ask my who, what, when, and where questions, followed by a discussion of themes, issues, and culture. These whole class discussions are important for me as a teacher to point out anything special in the chapter, make sure everyone is on the same page with comprehension, and to go deeper into the subtext of each chapter. The last stage is independent reading. Each student is responsible to read the next chapter on their own and understand it to the best of their ability. They are free to ask me any questions as I circulate around the room. Again, we come back together as a group to discuss the chapter in the target language. We then repeat the cycle until we finish the book, with the only exception being that instead of 2 or 3 chapters that we read as a whole class, we only read 1 chapter as a whole class before moving on to pairs and then back on to individuals. I find that 3-2-1 reading is a great way to scaffold reading with my students and at the same time give them some autonomy, even if only in small chunks, as we process the novel together. The traditional way of reading a novel is as a whole class, and this puts the burden of the instruction squarely on the shoulders of the teacher, and for many students causes them to be 100% reliant upon the teacher to understand the novel. The students never get an opportunity to struggle with the novel and try to make their own meaning before it is clarified by the teacher. And because of this, many of these students don't ever get to stretch their reading muscles and grow in their skills. By gradually moving them from whole class to pairs to individual and back again, students have multiple opportunities to flex their reading muscles and grow as they work to interpret what the words and the sentences mean, with the end goal of creating more autonomous readers. Now, just as I promised, you can get my free 3-2-1 reading guide at mm.us/321reading. Now, do you have any strategies you use with whole class novels? I'd love to hear about them. Share any of your strategies in the comments below. If you found these tips helpful, hitting the like button would be incredible, and consider subscribing if you want more videos on teaching in the modern language classroom. Want to watch more? Click on one of the videos YouTube has picked out for you. Happy comprehensible input.